Jessica had always believed that trust was the foundation of every relationship, especially when it came to working with killer whales. She was a dedicated trainer at one of the most renowned marine facilities in the world, a place where her bond with the majestic creatures was both admired and envied by many. For years, Jessica had been the face of the incredible performances that left audiences in awe, watching the killer whales leap and dive with perfect coordination. But behind the breathtaking shows was a deeper connection, one built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Jessica's love for marine life began when she was just a child, captivated by the mysterious world beneath the waves. As she grew older, her fascination with whales, especially the killer whales, only intensified. She made it her life's mission to understand these creatures, to study their behavior, and to connect with them on a level that few ever could. Her dedication wasn't simply about teaching the whales tricks or performing for crowds. It was about forming a partnership that was built on trust. She often spoke about the unspoken communication that existed between her and the whales, explaining that it wasn't just training, but rather a mutual understanding. Her colleagues and those who worked with her admired her unique approach. Jessica was not just a trainer, she was someone who spent hours observing the whales, learning their moods, and developing a routine that suited their natural instincts. She often said, "Trust is the key. It's not about domination, it's about collaboration." She believed that the whales could feel her intentions, that they understood her, and that this created a strong, unbreakable bond between them. For Jessica, every performance was not just a display of skill, but an opportunity to share her love and respect for the orcas with the world. She would always tell the audience, "These are not just animals, they are partners in the water. Without their trust, none of this would be possible." But despite her passion and dedication, Jessica was never naive. She knew the risks of working with such powerful and unpredictable animals. She never downplayed the dangers involved, often reminding new trainees that although orcas were magnificent creatures, they were also wild animals. The bond of trust she worked so hard to create was essential, but it couldn't erase the fact that at any moment, the primal instincts of these animals could take over. Her caution, however, did not dampen her enthusiasm. In fact, it only made her more determined to prove that with respect and care, humans and wild animals could coexist in a manner that was safe for both. Jessica's commitment to the orcas was unmatched. She loved them as if they were her own family, understanding their needs, their moods, and their personalities. She was their protector, their teacher, and their friend. Then one fateful day, everything changed. It was a typical performance day at the marine facility, with the usual excitement in the air. Visitors from all over the world had come to witness the spectacular show, eager to see Jessica and the killer whales perform. The whales had been practicing for weeks, and the routine was as flawless as ever. The audience watched in awe as the orcas performed daring flips, synchronized dives, and powerful leaps through the air, all guided by Jessica's careful commands. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and the show was a testament to the years of training and trust they had built together. But something went wrong. During the final sequence of the performance, as Jessica stood near the edge of the pool, giving her cues to the orca, the situation quickly spiraled out of control. Witnesses described the moment as one of sudden chaos. Without any warning, the orca veered off course, charging towards Jessica with a force that no one could have anticipated. It happened in the blink of an eye, and the crowd gasped in horror as they watched the orca strike. The trainers who were on standby rushed to intervene, but the whale's strength was overwhelming. Jessica, who had always prided herself on the bond she shared with the animals, was suddenly at the mercy of this creature she had spent years understanding. The orca's behavior was erratic and wild, a side of the animal that had never been witnessed during any of their performances before. In the moments that followed, chaos ensued. The crew tried to rescue Jessica, but the damage was done. The orca, once a symbol of grace and power, had turned into a deadly force, and Jessica was caught in its wrath. Emergency services were called, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Jessica had succumbed to the injuries inflicted during the attack. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines across the world captured the shocking incident, and social media erupted with both outrage and confusion. For those who had witnessed the performance, it was an image that would haunt them forever. The sight of a trusted trainer who had spent years working with these magnificent creatures being attacked by one of them in front of thousands of spectators. The world was left in shock. How could something like this happen to someone who had dedicated her life to understanding and caring for these animals? Was this a tragic accident, or was it a warning about the dangers of working with wild creatures, no matter how well trained they might seem? In the wake of the tragedy, the world was left in disbelief. Jessica, once a beloved figure in the marine world, was gone. The incident shook the entire marine park industry to its core. For days, news outlets reported on the horrific attack, with many struggling to comprehend how a trained and trusted animal could turn so violently. The images of the incident were burned into the minds of those who had witnessed it, and the video footage quickly spread across social media, fueling debates, discussions, and questions. The media, desperate for answers, began to scrutinize every aspect of Jessica's life, her training methods, and her relationship with the orcas. Interviews with her colleagues painted a picture of a woman who was dedicated, loving, and cautious. Yet, despite all of Jessica's careful preparations, the tragedy seemed to point to one terrifying truth. No matter how well-trained the whales were, their wild instincts could not be fully controlled. Animal rights activists seized the moment to push their agendas. They argued that no matter how gentle or trained an animal might appear, it is always a wild animal at its core, capable of dangerous outbursts. Many called for an end to animal performances, claiming that the conditions in which these magnificent creatures were kept were unnatural, that captivity itself was a form of abuse. The tragedy was quickly used as an argument against the practice of using orcas for entertainment, with calls to free all captive whales and put an end to such dangerous spectacles. On the other side, there were those who defended Jessica's legacy, stating that this event was an isolated incident that shouldn't define her life's work. Some claimed that the attack could have been caused by external factors, stress, injury, or even something as simple as an off day for the orca. They insisted that Jessica had always taken the utmost care in her work and that the attack was a heartbreaking accident, not an inevitable consequence of working with wild animals. Within the marine facility, the mood was one of profound sorrow and guilt. Jessica's colleagues and trainers were heartbroken. Many wondered what went wrong. Was there something they missed? Could they have done more to prevent it? They knew Jessica better than anyone. Her passion, her love for the whales, and her commitment to safety. But what could they have done to foresee such an event? Her training partner, Mark, one of the senior trainers who had worked alongside her for years, found himself questioning everything he had believed in. "We always thought we could manage the risk," he said in an interview, "but no matter how much you trust them, they are wild animals. Their instincts are unpredictable. We never truly know what might set them off." This was the crux of the debate. Could the bond of trust that Jessica and the orca shared really be enough to negate the powerful, uncontrollable forces of nature? Had they been blinded by their love and admiration for these creatures? It was a terrifying thought, one that would haunt many for years to come. But amid the sorrow and the guilt, there was another voice, one that said the blame could not be placed on the orca. It was simply doing what its instincts told it to do. After all, no matter how much trust had been built, no matter how much love Jessica had given, the whale was still a predator, a creature whose instincts could not be tamed. As the weeks passed, the marine park's leadership began to address the situation publicly. They released statements assuring the public that safety protocols would be strengthened and that further training methods would be implemented to ensure such an event would never happen again. But many in the public didn't find solace in these words. Some felt that no amount of safety measures would ever be enough to protect a trainer from an animal capable of such a forceful attack. Behind the debates and public outcry, the human side of the story was often forgotten. Jessica's family, devastated by the loss of their beloved daughter, sister, and friend, struggled to come to terms with what had happened. Her parents, who had always supported her dreams, now faced the unimaginable reality of burying their daughter, a woman who had given her life to something she loved, only to lose it in such a violent and senseless way. Jessica's best friend and roommate, Sarah, who had been there through it all, described the intense grief she felt after Jessica's death. She was so full of life, so driven by her love for the whales. "I can't make sense of it," she said through tears. She was careful, she was safe, and still this happened. The emotional toll didn't stop there. The other trainers who had worked alongside Jessica felt as though they had lost not just a colleague, but a part of themselves. Many of them struggled with the idea of returning to the water, let alone continuing to work with the same species that had taken Jessica's life. The emotional weight was almost unbearable. The guilt, the fear, and the disbelief overshadowed their every thought. As time passed, Jessica's legacy began to take shape. Some saw her as a martyr, a woman who had given everything for her passion, only to pay the ultimate price. Others remembered her as a trailblazer who had shown the world the deep connections that could be formed between humans and animals. Her work with the orcas was groundbreaking, and despite the tragedy, her contributions to the field of marine life were undeniable. Yet as the world mourned her loss, there was also a call for change. The incident had sparked a conversation about the ethics of keeping such wild creatures in captivity, and the spotlight was now on the safety of trainers and the treatment of animals in marine parks. Jessica's death would never be in vain if it could lead to safer practices, more respect for animals, and a greater understanding of the power and unpredictability of nature. In a small private ceremony, Jessica's colleagues, friends, and family gathered to say their final goodbyes. As they stood by her graveside, they reflected on her life and the deep connection she had shared with the orcas. There were no grand speeches, no media cameras, just those who truly knew her and understood the depth of her passion. As the sun set on that day, there was a quiet, shared understanding among those present. The grief would never fully go away, but perhaps Jessica's legacy would live on in a way that would change the future for those who followed her. The orcas, still in captivity, would continue to perform, but for those who had known Jessica, there was no performance without her. They would carry forward her lessons, her dedication, and her unwavering belief in the bond between humans and animals. But in their hearts they knew Jessica was gone, but her spirit would remain with them, and perhaps one day her tragic story would lead to change that could prevent future tragedies.